Last but certainly not least, coming to the stage and performing his speech titled Sit and Pray is our very own Matthew King. One more round of applause, please.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. There's power in this room. This is like a dream come true. So I just thank you, all of you all, for being here. All right. My sophomore year of high school, I became best friends with a kid who grew up a few blocks away from me. I, living in a quiet, white, nice neighborhood, never understood real-life racial injustices. I never felt the pressure of growing up in a low-income neighborhood where few, if any, are able to make it out of successfully. I was never told of the neighbor boy down the road that was abused and starved by his dad because generation after generation did so. I never knew what it was like to grow up only knowing the occupation of NBA player, rapper, or drug dealer. I never knew the way of life where my brother could come home at night with fresh bullet holes in his body, screaming for someone to take the pain away. I hadn't imagined this lifestyle at the age of 15, but my friend, a few blocks down, he lived it. As I spent more time with this friend, the disgusting truths of racism, hatred, oppression, classism, and prejudice were all unveiled to me. I came to know a side of the world that was meant to be an ugly secret. However, through friendships I experienced, I learned lessons that would never have been taught to me otherwise. This helped me see that these people going through a hard time, in a hard place, are just as human as I am. I recognize us as equal, as one, as family. At a house filled with relatives on a Thanksgiving day, I found my foundation being shook and my heart broken. The cause of this was a small white lady who is my aunt. She ranted about poor people being lazy. Most people on welfare are just cheating the system, and all these gangsters and hoodlums need to be taught a lesson. And she talked degradingly about my best friend and the people I just learned to call family. I found myself speechless. I didn't say one word. The silence washed over me as I waited and waited and waited for someone or something to make things right. Yet, there was no savior. Injustice was done. And all that was left was my broken foundation. The feeling of betrayal and the shame of silence. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. I was that tragedy. And the feeling of shame and betrayal, it continues to haunt me today. As I listen to those who said wait and follow the directions to be silent, I realize I have been lied to. Dr. King explained in his letter from Birmingham jail that when you are told over and over to wait, it begins to mean never. And when justice is too long delayed, it is denied. After having this realization, I understood that I must be a voice for the voiceless and a human of action. This led me to a low-income neighborhood that had been severely flooded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where a group of selfless people worked relentlessly to allow a lady that was elderly and disabled to return to her home safely. She told us as we moved all of her belongings to a metal box outside, stripped the tile from the floor, and worked our asses off, she told us the story that brought us to her home. She told us how the rain came in and day out, how the looters stole what little the homeowners had, how the insurance companies denied so many people help, and how the government turned a blind eye to the people they promised to protect. She told us that she waited, as her neighbors waited, and the other 146,000 other homeowners waited, that they found little help. That is, until community members and organizations decided to be the change that was so desperately needed. While the U.S. government failed to assist citizens who were in minority groups, elderly, low income, disabled, and now homeless, organizations like Rebuilding Together Baton Rouge picked up the slack, completing over 100 projects worth over $1 million to help community members live a comfortable and sustainable life, free of charge. The members of this organization brought together what little resources they had to give others going through a hard time a place to call home. The people of Baton Rouge exemplified this lesson, that you can't keep waiting silently for miracles to happen. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. While studying Dr. King, I learned that he outlined this concept of creating change in the name of equity and peace. He demonstrated this in the march he led in Selma, where the black people, already crippled institutionally, faced numerous violent police officers who inflicted even more pain. He exhibited this, showing up in the most racist city in America, Birmingham, Alabama, where he was thrown in jail, told he had no business being there, and faced numerous attacks on his morals and identity. He continuously practiced this idea through constant death threats, a house bombing, being stabbed in the chest, and he would still practice this idea if he were alive today. Dr. King explained in his speech at E.C. Glass High School, Jesus realized that turning the other cheek may cause suffering sometimes. He realized it may get your home bombed sometimes. He realized it may get you stabbed sometimes. He realized it may get you scarred up sometimes. Jesus was saying in substance that it's better going through life with a scarred up body than a scarred up soul. For all of these reasons, you may understand why it's so hard for me to be silent, why it is disturbing for me to wait, why I'm on this stage professing to you these stories and lessons. We all are oppressed and experience things that are meant to hold us from reaching our full potential. But these forces sustain and gain power when it convinces the good-hearted people to wait for a savior. Oppression convinces us that our voice isn't significant, that we can't make a change, that we aren't relevant in this world that we are in. This force has acted upon humans since the beginning of time, throughout the civil rights movement, and still affects us today. We must realize, as Dr. King and so many others have, that as long as we wait in silence, there will be no savior. We must share our ideas and experiences, speak up against oppression, and save not only ourselves, but all others affected. We all have a voice. We all are significant in this world. We all can be just as great, if not greater, than any human that has ever walked this earth. We must simply believe we are the change that we need and profess our truths. For Dr. King has made it very clear that the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for all of our contestants. As you all know, to speak in front of this large of an audience is not easy. So as we continue with the program, how we're going to do it for the voting process, we will have members of Men About Change passing out, on your table you have ballots, little square cards and pencils. So what you need to do is either number one for Mateo Saavedra for his speech. You can either write the number one or his name. Number two, Natea Calloway, or number three, Matthew King. And we will have people coming through the audience, and all you have to do is place the ballot into the bag, and then we will count those up.
Thank you so much. Yeah, y'all did good. Y'all did great. I'm gonna sit back.
Are you okay?
While we wait, I'm going to go over if you look on your table, you should have a little handouts for the day of service, which will be taking place at 12 p.m. There are several projects that will be available. Bookmarks for literacy, which will help Join America Counts and Reads to make bookmarks. Cards for the future and lunch bags, which you will be joining Lunch Buddies to make cards for elementary students and